listening to the Cricket Podcast.
I think it was a disgraceful performance, and I think it should never be permitted to happen again.
That is very good.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where we're going to be talking about the IPL, the match from today, the match from yesterday, the permutations that could happen with respect to qualification, and celebrating the fact that there's only one more Sunrisers Hyderabad match left for us to watch. I'm Jack Hope, and I'm joined by Max Rowe Brown. Max, how are you doing in the crack den over there?
Hello, Jack. Yes, I'm very well. I've actually decided to treat myself to a beer this evening to celebrate the most unlikely of events in today's game, that being a Sunrisers victory.
Yes, and we're joined by Daniel Norcross. How are you doing, Daniel?
I'm okay, thank you, Jack, and hello, Max. Yes, I'm all right. I'm recovering from the ministrations of yesterday, where the great, the good, the bad, the not so great, and everybody basically involved in the writing and broadcasting of cricket gathered together for an epic lunch at the Oval, which always, it's called the Cricket Writers Club lunch, but it's actually the Cricket Writers Club lunch, late tea, liquid dinner, and emotional send-off as we prepare for the off-season. As the German tanks have rolled into Poland, the phony war continues up to the point at which the clocks go back, and then nothing but pain, misery, darkness, and trying to keep up the cricket on the other side of the world at ungodly hours takes over and reminds us just how terrible the human condition is if you live in the Northern Hemisphere this far from the bleeding equator. But yes, I'm fine. Thank you.
That, gentlemen, is an energetic way to start a podcast. So thanks. A reminder, we are on Twitter and Instagram at The Cricket Pod. You can get back on Instagram now. That wasn't the case last time we did one of these. We're sponsored by Woodstock Cricket. There's a little logo on my right. I don't know, depending on which way you're looking at it.
Are you? I didn't know that. I love Woodstock Cricket. I'm one of their biggest fans. I'm a huge fan of Woodstock Cricket. Stephen Finn is sponsored by Woodstock Cricket.
He is.
Still hasn't hit six with that bat, but you know, he will do. He will do eventually.
Look, well, I hit plenty.
I'm delighted to hear this.
As I said on the last podcast, my average went up from 29 to 56 this season.
Dan, you've given him a chance now to.
Yeah, so I scored about 400 runs. Bossed it.
About 400 runs. Tell us, Jack, exactly how many runs did you score?
I think it was about 380 something.
Right, so you've done that classic cricket thing where you've taken a number and when it looks good for you, you've added a bit to go to the nearest milestone.
That's
like
exactly
when they do it the
what
other way around, when when they need 345 to win, they'll say, "Well, it's only 300. Only need 300 to win. We'll be fine." Yes, I know what you're playing.
That's exactly what I've done. And if you buy a Woodstock Cricket bat, you can do the same thing. And brag about your stats on your podcast. And we've got Patreon, patreon.com/the cricket pod. If you like asking us questions and stuff. There is some other stuff over there. Go and look at it. It's in the show notes. Max, let's talk about today's cricket match. Royal Challengers Bangalore for Sunrisers Hyderabad. The game we've all had this in our diaries for weeks. Haven't we? So I hope the summary's good.
It's been in my diary to arrange something else to do, and unfortunately I forgot, so I had to watch it. It's one of those strange things, this game, where it was actually, in terms of, we'll just skip to the end, the exciting conclusion didn't actually make it an exciting game. We could have skipped out the middle of it, but we'll go for a little summary anyway. As Jack disappears because he really is sick of Sunrisers and everything that they stand for. RCB won the toss and decided that Sunrisers could have a bat because, fair enough, what we've seen from Sunrisers over the last few games is that they're not very good at batting first, but they're also not very good at bowling. Bowling first either, so probably didn't make a difference. The logic behind that being it would be easier to chase on the pitch, which seemed a little slow, as is the tradition for all of the pitches this leg of the IPL. And Sunrisers mixing it up a bit again. seems like their plan was to get knocked out and then see if they could find a way of doing things that would be successful. So Abhishek Sharma opened the batting with Jason Roy, and it looked like it was paying off for a bit. He hit a few lusty blows before falling. Jason Roy did all right, and Sunrisers were actually, they were on a pretty good platform. They're about 100 odd for 2 or 14 overs, and we thought that they might break the 140 barrier that seems to have been colossally in their way for the last 4 or 5 weeks. And they did by 1 run, as they completely collapsed towards the end of their innings, as is their seeming pattern this season. Dan Christian probably changed the momentum of that innings with a good spell of bowling. Took 2 quick wickets, and his interview at the halfway stage was that they were pretty confident of chasing it down, and they reckoned 170 was par. Devdutt Padikkal had other ideas as he very slowly amassed 40 runs. And just to make sure that RCB didn't win the game, ran out Glenn Maxwell, who was the only one on the pitch who'd actually managed to score any runs at any particular rate, leaving RCB with a little too much to do at the end. And even the great A.B. de Villiers was unable to hit the 2 sixes off the last 3 balls that was required. And Sunrisers won a game of cricket, so that was a turn up. RCB lost a game of cricket, which is always entertaining, especially when they're playing the team who will bottom. And they've pretty much blown the chance of top 2 finish now, you'd think, in all likelihood, which they probably should have been aiming for when they're playing their penultimate game against the bottom team in the table. And obviously with all the glamour and riches that a top 2 position affords you with your second bite against the final. So I'd imagine they'll be kicking themselves a bit.
Can I ask Jack at this point, because I need a primer in this, and before we came on air, so to speak, you were mulling out loud the various extraordinary permutations that are now left in the tournament as to who can finish where and how and what they need to do. And I thought this would be a good moment for you to give me that primer so that I will be rejuvenated and can watch the remaining, 4 matches? Yes. With a renewed gusto.
I can just about do that. Let's start at the top, where it's a shootout between Delhi and Chennai Super Kings for first place and second place, which doesn't really matter because they're both going to finish in one of those 2 places, which means you get to go through the qualifier instead of the eliminator route, which means you get 2 bites of the cherry. RCB,
so to be clear, that means that RCB's next game is irrelevant.
From their point of view, yes, that is what it means, unless they can somehow win by about 400 runs.
Oh, okay.
So I think it's in about that ballpark. It might be a bit less. Might be between 200 and 400.
And 380 perhaps.
Yes. They're playing Delhi, so there's not really any jeopardy riding on that game. It's not even like one of the teams from down the bottom needs to win. KKR, they are in 4th place. If they win, they're almost certainly through. Because the only team that could, realistically catch them on net run rate, Mumbai, or the only team that could match them on 7 wins, is Mumbai, and they'd need to win by 94 runs, I think, if KKR win by a run.
Okay.
So it's a pretty big change there. Or
they are playing Sunrisers.
Yes, or chase down the opposition score in 8.3 overs.
We saw that happen the other day, didn't we?
Now there's an outside chance if Sunrisers Hyderabad bat first that could actually happen. It's a slim chance, but that's really the only run rate permutation involved. Punjab Kings can make it. So obviously if KKR lose and Mumbai win, then Mumbai are through. But Punjab can also make it if KKR lose and Mumbai lose, and they lose reasonably heavily, and Punjab win reasonably significantly.
Who are Punjab playing?
The Punjab Kings, they are playing Chennai Super Kings, who have nothing to play for. I mean, it could be the B team. Rajasthan actually similar. Similar, but they'd have to win by hundreds of runs. They're minus 0.7 net run rate.
They absolutely blew it yesterday.
Yeah, so that's
what
the
you're basically
permutations.
telling me is So what you're telling me is it's between KKR and Mumbai Indians, and that's it.
More or less. I mean, there's a freakish set of results that could send Punjab through. If Rajasthan, I've got it actually written down. If Rajasthan Royals beat KKR by 68 or more runs, if Sunrisers Hyderabad beat Mumbai Indians by whatever margin, and Punjab Kings themselves beat Chennai Super Kings by 47 runs or within 14 overs, they will qualify. No other scenario.
Oh, that's exciting. Do you know, that was the most concise way of describing a complex mathematical equation that I've heard since, ever.
It's not, let's be honest, the easiest way of differentiating between two teams, is it? You'd think that
no, but it's probably the most noble way. I mean, what would you like them to do? Like do it on the most number of struts, or worst of all, do it on the Fair Play League, a thing that has driven me mad since the very beginning of the dawn of the IPL.
I think something like sixes or wickets or boundaries or
boundary countback. Yeah, that would go down really well.
I read someone was suggesting Duckworth-Lewis. You can use the Duckworth-Lewis system over an entire tournament, and that in theory would be easier to calculate. I mean, part of the problem, we might as well talk about why I don't like net run rate now. This was going to be at the end of the podcast, so this is going to be all over the place. This show is that you can chase down a score 9 wickets down and get a huge boost to your net run rate that doesn't actually reflect the narrow margin of victory that you won the game by. And so I don't think it's as noble as it initially appears. It's not like goal difference in football, for example.
Can I take issue with that? Because essentially T20, and I agree quite a lot with a very fine man called Kartikeya Dutte, who is a cricketing view on Twitter. And he points out that actually T20 is not cricket at all. Not in the sense that we have understood cricket, since cricket was created to have 10 wickets in an innings for a good reason. It wasn't that you bat for 20 overs with it. So if you win by 9 overs, but you're 9 wickets down, that margin of victory is still 9 overs because you've got so much resource to play with that's how you should play T20 cricket. And really,
but
you should always be happier that
because each wicket you lose diminishes the theoretical number of runs you could score in the future. Both because you're closer to being bowled out, and because the next man in, traditionally speaking, although this isn't always how it works in the IPL, the next man in is less likely to be able to score runs than the one who's just been out.
Yeah, there's a modicum of truth to that. But ideally, what you actually want in your side is you want to see them 200 for 9. If you saw your side was 200 for none, you'd be furious. You'd think, well, you probably left stuff out there.
Batting first, for sure. But batting second is slightly different, isn't it? Because you don't have
but
to...
Not if you're chasing. But not if you're trying to win according to net run rate rules. In which case, that's exactly what you should be doing. And since net run rate is the rule, I love it.
On this particular occasion, then the permutations that I spoke about 3 or 4 minutes ago are what the team should be going for. Mumbai need to win by over 100 runs or in 8 or fewer overs to have any realistic chance of beating KKR. Although, actually, having said that, Mumbai, I think, are the last team to play, or they play after KKR anyway. So they will know what the target is, whether that's just winning by 100 runs, winning by 120 runs, whatever it turns out to be. All I want is some sort of super over that determines something out of the next
a 6-way super over.
Anyway, Max,
played on 3 different grounds by entirely different teams.
Why not a game of 3-team cricket with the man and the net? Could work. Max, anything from this game that we actually want to talk about? I mean, we've so far done the summary and we've addressed that Padikkal wasn't very good and Maxwell was, and then Padikkal ran him out, and that was quite sad.
I thought we'd got away with not covering it, but you brought it back, so I guess we'll have to. What did you make of Abhishek Sharma opening the batting for Sunrisers? Do you think that was worth a shot?
It was better than some of the other dumbass decisions they've made this year. really, the only other thing I wanted to talk about, and I was hoping you'd go straight to this, is Umran Malik. He got pointed out as a player.
Yeah,
who should
well,
watch.
that's the exciting bit. So I thought we'd build up to it.
Finally, a reason to watch Sunrisers, and they've only wheeled him out for the final 3 games of the season.
Yeah, when you have someone who bowls at 90 mile an hour basically all the time, and you're losing loads of games, and your bowling isn't, particularly exciting, why have we only just seen him?
Don't know, Dan. You know about cricket. Tell us.
Yeah, well, maybe he sprayed it around a bit in the nets. Maybe I don't know. I mean, we probably saw him now because he's cheap. And once you get to the end of a season when you know you can't get through, there is a sort of sense in which it's probably advisable to pick the players that cost you far, far less each time they walk out onto the pitch, when there's absolutely nothing in it for anybody. I mean, if you took that to its extremes, then Rashid Khan wouldn't have played, and neither would Kane Williamson. But you get my general gist. And I suppose the problem with your 90 mile per hour bowler is that there is a general groupthink, isn't there? That when you're out in the UAE on those pitches, which have been particularly unusual, I think you probably talked about this, but about leaving more grass on so that the pitches can survive until the World T20 probably affects the speed of them right now. So it's a kind of quid pro quo, really, for playing so much T20 cricket in a short space of time in the same location. So I guess they were thinking quite reasonably that somebody who bowls 90 miles an hour will be less effective than a whole battery of spinners and pace offers and cutters, because as a general rule, they have been a bit better. The guys who've shown the skills and who've done the back of hand slower balls and, as they say rather inanely, bowled it into the pitch. You don't bowl it into the pitch. You basically
it's not a good ball.
Incidentally, no, not a great ball. Not a great ball. But you know what I mean. Banging it in. So I think that was probably the reason. But then the thing about cricket is that there's an awful lot of truisms, aren't there, that aren't true. It's a little bit like how you should always bat first in Test cricket, when we're discovering more and more and more that when you play on grounds which are trying to make pitches that last 5 days, that have fantastic drainage, the inevitability is that the first day is the hardest to bat. So you're probably smarter off not doing the things that people used to do for years. And times are changing, and T20 is changing, and adapting isn't always obvious. So I think that's why we haven't seen him. In terms of other observations on today's game, I'll try to find some. I mean, Maxwell was extraordinary, wasn't he? I mean, I watched that game and my heart kind of sank again because it was so hard to bat, but it didn't require enormous skills to bowl to prevent batters from doing well. And yet here he walks out like, a child's toy. He looks remarkably to me like a child's toy. I can't help but see that constantly. And the ball was making the most beautiful sound of his bat. And every time I see Maxwell, I don't quite understand why he's not as revered and loved in Australia as he ought to be. I think if he was English, we would change. Yeah. Well, they do. And it's funny, isn't it? Given what a young country it is, it's strange how much they fear change. But then, if you remember when you were like a 5-year-old, you probably just ate Marmite on toast and a boiled egg, and you were terrified at the sight of courgette. So
actually, it was the tin, tinned mackerel and tomato sauce. That was my go-to. I would have that for lunch every day. Yeah.
Whatever ridiculous nonsense floated your boat when you were 5, that's essentially what Australians are. They are 5-year-olds, and so I suppose you're dead right, Jack. They fear change. They like the routine of not using Maxwell to the best
5-year-olds.
extent.
They're 5-year-olds who are going to flatten us over the winter.
Yeah.
But 5-year-olds are quite good at that. They're fearless and they're filled with bizarre and unnecessary confidence.
Yes. Somebody on YouTube has paid us 40 rupees to say, imagine supporting RCB and Manchester United. So, Addy, thank you for that. I'm assuming that's him. No one here supports Manchester United, do they?
He might be trolling a mate. You never know.
Imagine being Dan Weston supporting RCB and Tottenham. You think you've got it bad?
Well, actually, they're basically the same team, aren't they? RCB and Tottenham. They are extraordinarily the same team. Yeah.
Right. I haven't got anything else to say. Devdutt Padikal was bad. Someone
Yes,
asked
he
on
was.
Patreon, was it the worst innings? I don't know if they said in the history of the IPL. Hold on. Yeah. Was it the worst innings in the 2021 IPL? Probably was in the 2021 IPL. I think it could arguably be up there as one of the worst in history, couldn't it?
When I saw that question come in, I was all but prepared to say, "Don't be ridiculous! Like we've had as many bad innings literally in the last week as that. Like there was Priyam Garg the other day, Manish Pandey a couple of weeks ago was an absolute disgrace. Then he ran out Glenn Maxwell, and it automatically became the worst because that was unforgivable. It's just cost us seeing the game, basically."
What was so good about Maxwell is he was actually taking down Rashid Khan. He hit him for like 2 sixes, a 4. It was really fun cricket, and then he got terminated by Devdutt Padikal. So yes, I think it's the answer to that. It's a weird thing, wasn't it?
Because once he was out, there was this dreadful pall came over the game. Really, there's no point in Sunrisers winning. There's no point in RCB losing at that point. Do you know what I mean? It was the worst possible result, and I think I'm feeling this energy from all three of us, to be brutally honest.
Well, they keep bloody doing this, Sunrisers. Didn't they terminate someone else accidentally? beat one of the other teams that could have made it interesting near the end. I mean, they haven't won that many matches. Yeah, they beat Rajasthan a couple of games ago.
That's right.
It could have been a 3-way playoff for this final spot, but no, Sunrisers had to stick their oar in. Turn up for their bi-monthly cricket match, and they've beaten Punjab. They've
blown it. This is like my overriding feeling from this game. Like if you look at how it went and the result at the end and how close it was, it should have been exciting, and I felt completely unperturbed by any event throughout the entire afternoon. And it's nice to know that that's not a problem that I have, unless we all three share the same sort of.
I felt exactly the same way, but I've sort of felt a little bit of that in this UAE leg of the whole thing. I mean, it's the first time I've been on with you since since the whole jamboree's moved to the UAE, and I find myself watching it with shallow breath the whole time, waiting to go. Oh, I mean, obviously, Laxman Shivaramakrishnan manages to find everything absolutely amazing, but I don't in quite the same way, and because it hasn't been absolutely amazing. And do you know what I mean? There's been a sort of sense of it's almost a bit tantric. It's a bit tantric for me. It's like when are you going to like explode into actual life? And I think it might have to be because as you've gone through the permutations, there's going to be something exciting in there. KKR, their game will be important, and the Mumbai Indians game will be important, and then we'll finally get to the playoffs, and then whatever happens, that'll be fun. But this kind of loping stage on these kind of grabby wickets where people come and destroy the party is becoming a bit of a trope that is annoying me at the moment. But that might just be because I had a very, very heavy one last night.
Yeah, it could be. Booze blues are a real thing. There have only been 4 scores above 170 in just 2 matches since the IPL restarted. And for, I'll be honest, I think T20 is much better when the scores are 170 plus. I think it just works better as a format.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be 220 plays 215, but a little bit, a little bit more of a balance. It's been hard going in some matches. We didn't talk about yesterday's game yesterday because we didn't do a podcast. The interesting thing about this is the implications, isn't it? The fact that Rajasthan blew up and got murdered by Mumbai means that Rajasthan are effectively out, and Mumbai have a slim chance, even if it goes to net run rate. Max, can you summarise that game in like 3 sentences? I'll give it a go. So, Rajasthan Royals and Mumbai Indians played cricket on an absolute pudding of a wicket. I'm not sure whether it was more panna cotta, probably not a panna cotta, because that's got kind of a wobble to it with a bit of bounce. So it wasn't that. I think possibly a sticky toffee pudding might be about right with the sticky sort of side of it. But I think ultimately it felt more like a treacle tart. That was the middle of a treacle tart, obviously not the pastry. And Rajasthan failed to understand that the ball wasn't bouncing very high and decided to always be bowled or LBW by a ball that kept low, which for some reason surprised them. And then very kindly kept bowling without using the wicket to Mumbai Indians to allow them to chase the runs down very, very quickly. And Ishan Kishan's good at cricket again. Hooray!
Yeah,
he is.
Can I add to that it's one of those games, and it happens every now and then, where a broadcaster just lucks out. And a very dear friend of mine, Simon Mann, was on commentary yesterday for the BBC, and I could feel the vibes of glory when that game was hunted down in 8.3 overs. Instead of the 4-hour stint and then making his way back from the oval cricket ground, it was sort of a 3-hour stint. And I could feel his smugness from on the other side of the ground where the Cricket Writers Club dinner was, lunch was taking place. It was, it's beautiful when that happens as a broadcaster, especially a game that you're not massively invested in. The shame for me was, am I allowed to say this? I'm a Rajasthan Royals fan.
You're allowed to say that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is that when I say fan, I don't go out and buy the kit or anything or weep tears when they lose. Because I don't care that much.
Look, I don't really
care who. Kit. I don't care who wins cricket matches. Really, I just like watching cricket. So whoever wins, it'll be fun. Normally, apart from today, but there was it was just a beautiful thing. I felt the fellowship of broadcasters. I felt the joy emanating from the commentators who were actually commentating the match across the globe, as they saw an opportunity to get to the pub an hour earlier than they were expecting. And those are gifts that are in there. If you can give them as a cricket team, it just makes you even more lovely. And I think it's why Rajasthan Royals is generally loved by the commentating fraternity, because they'll do things like that for you.
Another thing I noticed after the game was that Sanju Samson seemed genuinely sad, and that doesn't always happen. So it was nice to have an emotional moment.
He should care. He should care about who wins.
You're enjoying his sadness, were you?
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess. And look,
from a Schadenfreude point of view, or from a like.
No. Like he genuinely seemed upset, and I felt for him. And there was an emotional human moment there where he started the day with a dream that he was going to lead Rajasthan to the brink of glory. Set them up for a run at the playoffs. Well, isn't their last game against KKR, so it would have been, a de facto quarter-final, basically, wouldn't it? And then, unfortunately for him, they had to play on a sticky toffee pudding. They didn't manage to put any kind of pressure on Mumbai. And Ishan Kishan came out of retirement, to all intents and purposes, to get his IPL strike rate above 100 for the first time this season. Obviously, for me, as a big Mumbai Indians fan, I'm happy, and I do buy the kit because I'm a proper fan.
And a glory hunter as well. Mumbai Indians. I mean, don't get me wrong, but who in their right minds is actually a Mumbai Indians fan? I mean, obviously not you, because you can't be in your right mind. I mean, that's what? What? Who? No self-respecting journalist is a Mumbai Indian.
Well, it's a wonderful. Well, it's very kind of you to refer to Jack as a self-respecting journalist. First of all, and I'll be looking forward to our invitation to the Cricket Writers Awards dinner next year. But it's a lovely narrative that Jack pulled some names out of a hat for us at the start of the IPL for us to support teams and get involved. Jack, obviously, this is entirely by chance, gave me CSK, who came, was it bottom last year? Yeah. Did Ross get Rajasthan Royals? Ross is
also a Rajasthan Royals fan. Yeah.
I remember.
After coming, very close to bottom.
Yes.
And Jack drew the Mumbai Indians for himself, who we all expected to run away with it. So it's a nice feeling, at least for me.
Well, I drew last, didn't I? So it was by the time I went, there was a 20% chance I'd get Mumbai Indians, which was much higher than the 12.5% chance you had when you went first.
And much higher than the 0% chance I had when you opened them all to check which ones you gave us before you pulled them out the hat.
It's just It's just maths. Akash V saying he knows where the money is. Is there money in being a Mumbai Indians fan? Because again, I've not found it. Right. All of this means that the IPL is going to the final day. We talked about the permutations earlier. It comes down to these 4 matches, which I should have had up on my screen because that would have been a seamless transition, but I don't. Tomorrow we will see Chennai Super Kings taking on Punjab Kings in a match that Punjab need to win to have any chance of going through, and they need to win it by 50 odd runs. So it's early in the morning, or it's 11 o'clock for people in the UK. I think you can probably not take time off work for that one. There's no extended lunch break or coffee break required. Maybe tune in near the end if something interesting's happening. At 3 o'clock, the Kolkata Knight Riders take on the Rajasthan Royals. This is UK time. It's obviously happening later in India or wherever you're listening. That one's probably worth watching, I think. That's the match that sets up the match after it. KKR, if they win, are very close to through. Rajasthan, if they win by, I can't remember what it was, 200 runs or something like that, they aren't out of it. Then tomorrow, on Friday morning, Sunrisers Hyderabad take on Mumbai. And at this point, Mumbai will either need to win or win by loads. So, hold on. Yeah, why are they both at 3 o'clock on Friday? That makes no sense.
I don't think they are. I think the first one's at 11.
That's not according to Google, it isn't.
No, I think they're trying to play them. I think they're trying to play them simultaneously so that there'll be no shenanigans. I think that was the idea. But of course, that means, I suppose, for neutrals, I suppose, do we want? It's hard to tell, isn't it? As a neutral, I suppose you want Rajasthan to win, so there's a bit of pressure on Mumbai because it's a straight shootout, win or lose, isn't it? That's kind of what you want, isn't it? Because if KKR win, then Mumbai have got to win by a colossal number.
Realistically, they'll win by more than one run.
Do you know what the ideal scenario is? KKR win by about 80. There's no chance Mumbai can get through, so we don't have to watch Sunrisers.
Oh, yeah, that's a good call.
Good point.
Yeah, and then we can regroup, come back, do the playoffs.
Yeah, we'll have a little break.
We'll
have a little sojourn and come back refreshed. What is the point of playing the last 2 games at the same time if there are already 2 games before it the day before? Which are the ones that actually matter in the context.
Yeah, well, look, I think it was an attempt to try to find some kind of probity in a system that can't possibly have it. Because really, what you need to do is play all of the last 4 games simultaneously. But that would involve somebody going and playing in Oman, really, because there just aren't enough pitches for everybody to play at simultaneously. And it would also get incredibly confusing. And Laxman Shiva Ramakrishnan would probably lose his shit because there'd be 6s scored everywhere simultaneously, and that would send his voice into absolute overdrive. So there would be that issue. Danny Morrison would also become untenable as a concept. Would probably end up in space and in geostationary orbit, just screaming at the top of his voice.
Also, imagine
Academy cracking 6.
on Academy.
Yeah.
Vivo, perfect catch of the match.
Yes.
How many safaris would we need as well? That's an issue. I don't think they've
got a bonus safari. They all drive them, don't they? Do you not hear them on commentary?
Oh,
She's one of the commentators.
Well, this is a question I wanted to ask you both because you've been watching it slightly more closely than me. Very occasionally, I've had to do things.
No one's hit the car.
But, no, it's not the car. That's what I was going to ask. Although I am.
They did come close the other day. Very close.
But what I wanted to ask you is, who do you think has had the best segue? Because for my money, it's been Ian Bishop. Ian Bishop did an absolutely brilliant segue the other day.
Yes.
When he talked about a beautifully sleek shot through the onside, and then it went to the car, and he went, and things that are sleek include this fantastic safari car, and it was just beautiful. He nailed it. But the contortions in which each commentators have to get to in order to make it sound like they're talking about this car as if it's part of the conversation they've just been having is one of the great skills. And I obviously watch it with a keen professional eye to see Would I be able to do that? Who's
Practice your
favourite?
segues.
So I think there are
Practice
three
the
to look
segues.
out for. One is Bishop,
Yeah.
who, he's the master. He's very much, if we compare him to cricket, it's very much the Ian Bell in terms of the elegance at which he can get onto the sponsorship topic of the
He
moment.
can turn a piece of commentary into a sponsorship moment without you even noticing, which I'm not sure the sponsor wants, incidentally. But
It puts the comms in commercialism.
Then you have Danny Morrison, who I kind of think of as a little bit like a sort of young Joe Root. Very enthusiastic about the task at hand. Sometimes slightly over enthusiastic, I think. But he does produce. He produces the goods time after time. And he is quite excellent.
You really
possibly-
believe it with Danny Morrison, don't you? You believe
Possibly-
he loves the Safari.
Possibly the
He's
best
super
flogger of
invigorating.
safaris in the world right now. On the ICC ranking, he's near the top.
Well, what I love about his methodology is that he will literally, the double R's need the bloody blah, and the camera will go to the safari, at which point he go, and there, here in Sharjah, the greatest car you could ever see.
And then
Car so huge and massive and sleek and fast and wondrous and brilliant. Who wouldn't want one? Who? And I just adore that. The energy and the enthusiasm is something that is, I think, matchless. But yeah, and who's your third?
and then on the other end of the scale, there are some people who just aren't very good at it. And I think Nick Knight had a good one today.
He's new to the game, though. Bless him.
I mean, I don't really know who to compare him to. Someone really bad. He admitted he hadn't even sat in the safari. He said, he said,
that's a novelty
and
there,
I basically quote, "I need to sit in that car." And it's
too honest. Too honest.
Oh no. I think you're misunderstanding his gambit there. What he's basically saying is, "Give me a car." That's what
okay.
he's saying
Right,
there.
well, yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. I think that's it may not be great for the sponsor, but I think it'd be great for Nick. I think he might find himself sitting behind the wheel of a small automobile, or even large in this case, Safari, before the day is out. They will rectify that problem, and he will be spinning around the desert as we speak.
4D chess. Right, look, there's a few more questions we want to get to really quickly before we wrap this up in 5 minutes or so. Who do we think is going to qualify here? So with the top three's done, which of the Mumbai, KKR, or one of the outsiders do you think will go through? Max, you can go first.
I mean, logic says KKR because it's in their hands,
boring,
but
isn't it?
I just don't see them not bottling it. There's just something about them that feels like they, especially given the resurgence they had in the second half of the IPL. Actually Vic London put in the super chat the new KKR. That's sort of what they feel like. I just don't back them to sustain it, and I feel like they're going to fall at the last hurdle because that just feels right.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Max. I think it's a little bit like to adapt Gary Lineker's line about football. The IPL is a game played between 8 teams, and on the last round, the Mumbai Indians scrape through and then end up in the final. And that's essentially what has to happen. It's the script. You can't move away from it. I mean, anybody who's seen WWE wrestling will know how this works. And KKR will bottle it, and MI will get over the line in an extraordinary fashion off something like the last ball, and all of our innovation and general kind of will go out of the window. On Friday, we'll be dribbling messes of excitement once more, and it'll all be because of your team, Jack. Your team, who fly the flag for exciting and entirely predictable cricket. Excitingly predictable cricket.
Well, they are the best at it, to be honest, aren't they?
They are, they are.
They've captured the market for exciting cricket.
It's like Fergie time, isn't it, for MI? Basically.
I think that I'm just reading through some notes I put down here. Do you want to know what Rajasthan need to do to qualify?
Go on.
They need to win by 166 runs or within 2 balls. The notes I've got down here from whoever wrote this says, this seems impossible and has never been done before.
That's useful fluff on that, just in case anyone was left wondering.
Well, it's funny you should mention that. The very first game of cricket I ever played at school in 1979, we were bowled out for 4. We only lost by 4. Only lost by 4 wickets. The Oppo were 6 for 6 when they got over the line.
Were you playing in Abu Dhabi on a treacle tart?
It was a little bit more like a creme brulee. There was a sort of crusty top, and then there was a very, very soft underneath. But yeah.
All right, so effectively we're in a situation. And we've got a couple of questions from listeners, but I do want your opinion on this, Dan. What's the best narrative for the end of the IPL? Is it Kohli winning in his last year of captaincy? Is it Dhoni doing it again? Is it Morgan winning as a specialist captain? Is it Delhi? That's not really a good thing about Delhi. Or is it Mumbai with the ultimate comeback?
Oh yeah, that's a damn good question. I think the one that everybody wants to see is RCB winning. I don't personally, because I enjoy their agonising pain continuing. So I think it just makes it more fun for next year and all subsequent years. But I think there's a desire to see that happening. I don't think there'd be. I think Mumbai winning is a bit too predictable. CSK winning again, a bit too predictable. Quite like the idea in a strange kind of way of a bland side like Delhi doing it. I say bland. I think they're the ones that are the most. They're the ones I've got most affinity with in terms of the top teams, because I just like the sort of Terminator-esque, Borg-esque determination, actually to have a plan and stick to it and be good at it. And, I think that's probably how sporting teams should win. So I'd quite like to see that. And Delhi had a really bad COVID as well. I think it'd be lovely for them. And I've got some friends in Delhi, and so I feel a bit like, wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice?
A bit like Dolmio pasta sauce.
Yeah, a bit like Dolmio.
There's nothing exciting about them.
Well,
but they will do the job if you're in a pinch.
Shikhar Dhawan's my favourite living Indian, so I'd be very happy for him. He's a really, really lovely man. He does great videos, and and I've also seen him bowl balls with his daughter on the outfield at Derby, and it was one of the most touching sights I've ever seen.
Okay, right. We have some questions in. One from Vic, and I'm going to combine this with Moyuk. Vic asked the question to you, Dan.
I was hoping you'd do that.
What does Daniel Norcross think of Venki Iyer and the new KKR? But then Moyuk's followed that up, and has requested that you do Danny Morrison again, because they've had to drop off an office call just for this moment. So could you tell us your thoughts on Venki Iyer and KKR as Danny Morrison?
Well, I don't know. Can I go high enough? Can I go loud enough and long enough? The double KRs with the golden pads, a side I've got a great affinity with, but they're carrying the captain. How long can he stay at the helm? Can he be any longer? I don't know. Surely not. I like those. The fact that they've managed to do all this without Andre Russell. I mean, the problem for the double KRs was that Andre Russell in the first game that they came back, if you remember, he outpaced 2 fielders in running down a ball that was going to the boundary. And I thought, that's a bit weird. That's not what Andre Russell does. Andre Russell looks arthritic and overweight and stands in the infield, slightly complaining about various aches and pains, like my great aunt Doris. But suddenly he was really, really rapid. And I think in doing that, he screwed himself. Venki Iyer is a work in progress. I'm not prepared to comment until I've got more. I need more detail, because these stars that shine brightly to start with, they can get found out. I'm not, I think of Portishead. Their second album was a diabolical. Loved them after the first one, then it all went horribly downhill. Let's wait. Let's give ourselves some time. Let's not get too excited and enthusiastic. But you asked me about the best narrative, and I've completely forgotten that actually I would love the double KRs to get over the line in a strange sort of way. Not because of Owen Morgan, actually, but just because I love the fragility with which they play the game. They can be at once awesome and diabolical. And that's what I want in sport. I want that feeling of jeopardy. So they're a side that, like, they have me on the edge of my seat in a way that, like, for example, today's game, as we've discussed, absolutely did not. So yeah, forget everything about Delhi. I want John Catton Knight Riders to win. It's so hard having all these different thoughts at once, isn't it? You can't keep hold of one for any great length of time. I think I've got ADHD from watching the IPL.
Maybe Danny Morrison's entered your head. You've got thoughts
It'd be
of
a
two people
disaster.
going on.
Yeah.
Right.
Is it true that he's actually Australian? Anyway, never mind.
We're going to wrap up this podcast now. Well, look, you're welcome back anytime. There's some games over the next 2 days. We'll do a show to cover them. And then it will be on to the playoffs, which is going to be good. And then it's on to the World Cup, which is going to be even better. We've got a Scottish guy lined up already to come on and talk about Scottish cricket.
Tell me he's called Hamish. Please tell me he's called Hamish.
I think it's Ronan, which isn't, it's
not bad.
It's in the Hamish wheelhouse. It's 2 or 3 degrees of separation, but it still sort of works. A reminder, if you're watching on YouTube or whatever, then hit like, hit subscribe, and so on. Patreon.com/thecricketpod to give to us directly, and at the Cricket Pod on Instagram and Twitter to follow along with whoever's not doing their day job and is manning the controls there. Me or Ross usually. Goodbye.
Before we finish, can I just ask something? Sorry, before we finish, because I've been absolutely transfixed by the things on your ears. You've got these sort of little white things. So yeah, but they're white bits on. I've worked out what it is now. I thought you had earbuds, but it's not. It's just the headphones and the wall behind you.
Oh, I see.
You can't even. You see what I mean?
The gap between the.
It was a bit like you had like Spock ears, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But now I've worked out exactly what they are, and it's nothing like as exciting as I'd hope.
If you're listening on the podcast, head over to YouTube, minute 46, to hear
Make sure you click all the ads on your way through.
Yes. All right,
I've not even had a drink really today, apart from this wine, so I don't know what's going on with me. I blamed yesterday. Anyways, lovely to see you.
Bye-bye, everyone. Right.